All right, I'll send you a request. This is gonna be easy. Hello? Why are you saying hi to yourself? Is someone else on your account?
What's that?
I think someone else is on your account too because
How?
it just says hi, Coach Diaz.
Oh, I don't know how that works, but
Or
anyway,
did you write that?
I don't know how that works. I'm just following you.
How are you doing? What are you doing today?
Easy day, all
Yeah.
rain, took it easy, rest the legs, you know. I did some coaching yesterday, just doing privates and stuff
Yeah.
because you can't do much else. I'm sure you're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know, some days are easier than others.
That's true. I took off. We've still been open, and some of my coworkers have been still working and just
Okay.
doing privates too.
Yeah,
But I took off. I kind of just made that decision with my family because we just didn't know what it was going to be like.
yeah.
So I've gotten to do this, which it's been fun, but I think I'm going to go back to teaching this next week and just do privates and, you know, have precaution, but I,
hmm
you don't know.
Are you,
So,
are you trying to be a sportscaster, like
no,
interview
I'm not
person,
trying to be a sportscaster.
like
I
a
could, that would be fun.
tennis expert?
Yeah, okay. 26 tennis expert. No, I'm just like, man, I have so many friends that know
Yeah,
so much,
yeah,
and why not?
yeah.
So it's
It's a
been
good way to
fun.
start. Being young. Start with Instagram, start with videos, make yourself famous.
Oh yeah, famous. Yeah, I think those people who like try to be famous, they must spend so much time. I think if they
Yeah.
actually become famous, it's just like a fluke video. So
hmm
you just got to do something really crazy that no one
Yeah,
else has done.
you don't strike me as a crazy one.
You never know.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
okay, so how this will work is I will introduce you. We'll talk for about 25 minutes or so. If anyone has a question, you see the fun little icon with the question mark? They can put a question in there
hmm
and we'll answer a couple of those maybe throughout or through the end.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so this is Stephen Diaz. I have known who you are for a long time because you coached some of my friends growing up, but we got to work together, golly, I think it was fall 2018 for Southern
Yes.
Cup. So that's when we got to know each other. And that was
The
just so
last time
much
Georgia
fun.
lost.
Yeah, I coached the only year Georgia lost. Fantastic.
Oh,
Fantastic. And then they didn't have us as coaches again. Okay, great.
oh God.
Um, but you have been a coach for a long time, even though
Yes.
you're still super young.
Thank you. I'm
But
still
you're
young.
still young. You started Stephen Diaz Tennis Academy. It's been 24 years in
Yeah.
Marietta. And have you always been in Marietta?
The academy, yes, yes.
Okay.
I started the academy actually at Terrell Mill Tennis Center.
Yep.
Um, but I was only there for a couple of years because I started growing some, and then they won't really not give me any more courts. So then I left that place and I started coaching. Ironically, I moved the academy to an apartment complex that I used to live at, and they
Okay.
happened to have 6 courts. So I was able to run it out of my own apartment complex, which
Wow.
is weird. Um, and the place was phenomenal for a while. You know, um, we didn't have we had the courts, we didn't have the facility, but we had courts. Parking was a bit of a drag. Other things, apartment complex, you can imagine.
Yeah.
Um, but I did great there. I mean, I was there for. I mean, the fact that I run an academy out of there and I still had about 60 kids in an apartment complex. It's crazy.
Wow.
And I was coaching at that time. I mean, I had different batch of great players here and there, and I had some there, like a lot of them. And but then eventually the place had to get a little run down, kind of like most apartment complexes eventually, and I had to get out of there. So lucky for me, Harrison Tennis Center wanted me there, and I took it right away. and I stayed in Marietta, obviously.
Yeah.
So when you make those kind of moves, you always wonder, you know, you get job offers in different places, and you're like, I don't want to go. I really care about my kids. I didn't want to go anywhere else. So when I moved to Harrison, I think, you know, some people live closer to Harrison, some people live the opposite way. But I was able to keep about 75% of it, you know,
Wow.
moving to Harrison. So I think I'm
Yeah.
in Harrison with like maybe 40 something kids that follow me. And then there, obviously, better facility, and I was able to like build something from the bottom up, because I think at the apartment complex, even though I had a lot of great players and everything, it was difficult to meet new players that were little. Like the little people were not where they're gonna come from, you know?
Yeah.
So it was hard. And even to the apartment complex, I started with young kids. It was very hard to meet other young kids because they don't know an apartment complex and whatever. And, you know, it's kind of hard. So, but I didn't look at it from that angle. I looked at it from an angle as I was happy with what I had, but it came a time that I had to leave the place. I just had to go somewhere else. And, but again, I was able to take most of the kids and keep going to Harrison. So that was it was a good transition for me. Ironically, I lived 5 minutes from Harrison when I worked at the apartments. So I
Wow.
actually moved even closer to my house. I could ride a bicycle, and that was pure coincidence that I happened to live right by there. Because I was coaching a lot of outer teams before I got into the junior development stuff. And all my teams were on Sandy Plains, Charlotte Fort, Sandy Plains, that whole East Covey area. So I was already well known in the area for some other, you know, like coaching reasons,
Hmm.
ladies teams, kids teams, and all that stuff. So I just happened to live there. So that was kind of ironic that I ended up right there, you know. So that was
That's
me. That was good. That was a good transition.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So how long have you been at Harrison now? Because you've been there for a while.
I think we're like in 11 years, maybe. I think we're
Okay.
about 11 now, 10 or 11, something like
Okay.
that. Yeah, yeah. I
And
think that,
you make a good point about saying you couldn't necessarily have little kids and build a little kid program at your apartment,
mhm,
because I think something that I've learned in creating a successful tennis business, it's hard to just have high performance,
yes.
because kids will leave and they'll come based on the players you have at the time or the
Mhm,
coaching. And if you don't have younger kids that feed into the program, it's hard
yeah.
to sustain something. So just talk about that real quick, how you might have transitioned when you went to Harrison into building more programming than just doing your high performance.
Well, obviously, other than all the good players and the more advanced players, we were able to start a group of mainly like high school players, people, kids that just want to play JV or varsity. That, I mean, you know, their goal is just that. They're not going to go out there and kill themselves. And I don't expect the same from them that I would from somebody that wants to be really good. So we're able to start a group like that. Um, and that's a really fun group because you see a lot of kids that are enjoying the game so much and their goals are not that high, you know, but also their abilities are not the same as some of these other kids either. So they're just so pumped and excited to make the high school teams and stuff. So really enjoy coaching them and having fun with them, and trying to help them develop with what they got. Like, you know, whether it's a technical thing, you know, they come in there and they have really shady technique and you have to kind of start shit. You know, you got to work with that.
That's always really fun.
Oh my goodness. So that's, you got to give them a little bit of a better foundation, better understanding of you know, the main strokes, because there's so much to it. Hey, let's start with forehand, backhand, serve. Let's just take it from there. And let's put the ball in the court. Let's put
Yes.
the ball in the court. So you try to start with that, and then it transfers to helping them understand a little bit about consistency, ball control, you know, just put the ball in play, get stuff started, you know, and then we can work from there. At the same time, you're building a good relationship, you're keeping it fun for them, you make it challenging depending on what you see, you know, that's a must do. So I'll challenge you as soon as I can. And then that's when you start seeing the different personalities of how they handle situations. You know, some are like, yeah, bring me more, let's go, you know, and some are like, oh, you know, I don't know, I don't want to miss, you know, I'm scared, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to deal with that part too. So, and then we're able to start like a, you know, 10U group. We don't do anything like 4, 6 year old stuff. We don't do
Yeah.
any stuff. We honestly don't have the time to
Yeah.
do that, the courts or the time. So we start really in the 10U, and then 12U, and then we go to 14U, and then we have an 18U, and then we have the high school, and then we have the early release kids. There's obviously not that many of those that just go a little earlier. They leave school early, as you already know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been good. And then um, I feel like just being able to, you know, for people to come into Harrison and start knowing about the programs, because Harrison has a lot of different stuff, and we're just a part of it. You know, people think that we're Harrison is just us, but definitely not at all. I mean, there's junior Alta, there's other coaches doing recreational lessons, there's county classes, there's all these other things that go on. We are only a small part of Harrison. I'll hopefully say a big part of Harrison, obviously, but we're just a part of Harrison. We're not, you know, we're not everything there, you know. So,
Yeah.
but it's been good. It's been good. I think one of the things is being able to adapt to the other programs, you know, because sometimes, you know, I feel like other programs are not developing players. They're just being recreational. And sometimes you're not aware of a kid that has a little bit of potential, a little bit of more interest, and
Mm-hmm.
you ended up never meeting them. And the poor kid never gets better. And then they come to you 3 years later and they're like, oh, yeah, we want to join your program. And the kid's already older. And I said, well, what have you been doing in the last? Oh, I've been playing for 5 years. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
5 years? Okay, so, you know, let's see what you got. And then I'm like, where did you learn this stuff? You
Yeah.
know? And oh, I've been in Harrison for 4 years. I said, you never known about us? Like you never seen us? We're right here next to you, you know? And then you have to do like a major surgery in their game. So I feel that's always been a little bit of an issue working in a park that have different things and everything. So if people know about us and people, I think, are more educated about, you know, where to go and what to do, they find us. They go, yeah, Stephen,
Yeah.
whatever, let's go there. That's the place. But a lot of people don't know. They just bring their kid to play with a racket. They
Yeah.
really have no idea. So they sometimes put them in programs that are very, very low cost or less time or something. And they think that that's the same. And that's just not the same at all.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to another coach the other day, and I said, because I was thinking about this, I was like, it's so easy as a tennis coach to think that just because you're moving a kid around in a lesson, they're getting a lot out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And where you could take a golf lesson and it has to be so technical and so well done, and you can't make any errors as a coach or you're really going to screw up someone's game. And
Mm-hmm.
that just shows too, if you take the same kid and he goes to a coach who really can develop and see and has an eye for the game versus someone who's just going to move them around, the difference in their
Yeah.
improvement. So you talk about this adaptability and you have different programs, and I was just listening to a webinar like an hour ago, and the first question on it was, if you were to explain what makes a great coach, what would be like in 3 to 5 words or qualities?
Mm.
So for you, what do you think makes a great coach?
I think you got to be able to motivate. I think be a good motivator. I think you got to be able to communicate well with people. You know, you meet so many different personalities out there. You got to be able to figure that out. You have to be passionate. You got to love what you do. I mean, obviously that's a no-brainer. And I think you have to kind of really study the kids' sort of traits and try to figure out what's best with this kid. They all have different characteristics and stuff. And then you use your knowledge and your experience to go, you know, this is best for you. Let's start with this. and then we can take it from there. So I think a great coach has that eye that can figure that out, like you were just saying, to develop players in different stages, you know. So I've coached a lot of players that were with me for like 10 years, from 8 years old to 18. And I realized over time, and you probably know some of them. Remember Jennifer Meredith from way
Mhm.
back? You know, these are players that were great players, but they also have some things like, okay, how do I make this player compete at a national level? You know, where Jennifer wasn't the tallest, you know, but she had skills, and I'm like, how do I make her like be more efficient? So I think it's all about helping a player become more efficient with what they have as much as possible. And if you have a good relationship and the player believes in you and trusts what you're saying, I think you can do some good things. You can maximize their potential for sure, and that's huge for me.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you first started coaching, we can talk about that a little bit, it's it was easier to coach players who were just like you? And how do you think that's changed? Because I think something that I've been learning is, there's certain coaches and they want to coach, oh, they have the same personality as me or the same mental
Yeah,
characteristics as me, and let me have the same game style as them. But not everyone is 6 feet tall
yeah,
or is
yeah,
strong. And
yeah.
how do when you first started coaching, do you feel like you had an eye for that already, or was it a challenge for you to more adapt to the player's strengths and then build that
You
from
know,
who they were?
I think I see it as myself in a way, because I grew up with really no coaching, and I was
Wow.
self-made and never had a mentor, never had a coach, never had somebody that gave me direction. My parents didn't even know tennis. They don't even know how to keep score. Um, I was out there because I wanted to be there. So when I started coaching earlier, I was still playing. So I was much more of a player than I was a coach. And good players wanted to hit with me and play with me and whatever, come hit with me, whatever, the whole scene in Atlanta. And I was hitting with players, and I started coaching some of the players. And I realized that even back then, if the players were already pretty solid and they're pretty good, it was all about, well, how do I make this player more efficient? How do I make him um, adapt better and adjust better to what he's dealing with? You know, so because I grew up like that, I grew up with a different game style. You know, I was the kind of guy that nobody wanted to play against. I had the lefty serve. You didn't want to see that. I was coming in. I had the volleys. I had the slices. I had the feel. I wasn't your normal like grinder, pretty strokes kind of thing. I was completely different, and I think that helped me. That helped me develop good players early, because one thing I did early was I saw a kid with ability or whatever, or kids that were pretty good, and I'm like, hey, these guys can do this. Let me teach him this. He may only have a forehand in the back, and like, hey, dude, you need to learn to come to the net. You need to learn to attack. You need to learn to finish points. You need to learn to slice. So I have players right away that I taught them how to play a little differently. So when we're going to tournaments and I was watching them and stuff, they were trying all this stuff. So I said, this player has good awareness. You know, he knows what's out there. And I taught them to be a little more creative. You know, become more creative, and I think that helped a lot for them to, I guess, be successful fairly quickly. And then from there, they just got so confident, and they realized that there were so many ways to win points. And I think that was something that was missing when I was watching these tournaments, and I see a lot of people kind of playing the same way and the same stuff. And I'm going, all you have to do is do this, this, and this, and they're going to be hating you. They're going to be hating you. They're not going to tell you, but you may even make him cry. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I saw a lot of great players just tank matches because they hated to play one of my kids. They just hated. They just hated it, and they just and that built their game quickly. So I think the fact that I used to be that way as a player really helped me help them from that aspect. But I also feel like I knew little about other things, to say the least. You know, you're a young coach, and you're trying to do your best, And then you start learning that, oh my God, there's so many other things that I have to like pay attention to here,
Yes.
you know. I felt that technically I needed some education on strokes. You know, I knew how to hit a ball, I knew how to play, but you know, like different, like the forehand has changed so much because I'm a little more
Yes.
old school, and the modern forehand changed, and the grips went a little more towards the western, semi-western, and I had to learn all that swing pass, the volleys, the slices, the serve. I have no problem with that. I think that was just me, but I think from a stroke standpoint, I had to learn a lot technically, and then when it come to tactics, it was more about patterns. I didn't know much about patterns. I was more about shot selection. Like I was good about, hey, use this shot, use that shot, use variety, try to mix it
Hmm.
up. That I was more into that. But patterns and how many angles and down the lines and three here and one there, I didn't know that even existed. I just played tennis, you know. So I had to start learning
Ah,
that kind of stuff because I was seeing all these players that were like little ball machines, you know, they just like the same shot, and they were pretty good at it. But I also knew how to beat them. But at the same time, I was like, man, these kids are just backboards. They just have good strokes, and but they were very one dimensional. And I had to learn more about that type of game too. You know, how to be a better grinder, how to have more solid stroke. I didn't know that. I was totally clueless about this because I was so self-made and I was a different style of player, and I always used to come to the net, and you know, net points are a lot shorter, you know, obviously. So I was like a 1, 2, 3, see you later kind of player. It's over, you know.
I like those points.
Yeah, I love those points. I got good at it, and that's what I like. But I needed to learn about more point construction from the baseline because a lot of these kids struggle with other things too. You know, with some didn't have the net that some of the kids I coach had. So I ended up getting other players that really only came to NA to shake hands. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to learn how can I help this kid win from the baseline because that's all he's got. So I had to learn these things to improve their baseline game too, you know, and try to help them be a little more successful while at the same time, hopefully someday they may want to come up to the net.
Yeah, every night praying. If they
Praying
just
that
came
net,
to the
man.
net,
Oh my
they
God, get to
just
the net,
came to
man.
the
How many
net.
chances do you need? How many balls do you need inside the service line? I mean,
Oh my gosh.
so
I had a kid
yeah.
on my zonals team last year and he's awesome. I love him. And he's about 6 feet tall, 14 and under. And I started calling him Volley King. He did not want to come to the net. Great volleys. And I told him, I was like, if you just serve and volley, you're going to win this set like 6-1.
Gonna scare
Served and
people.
volleyed, won the set 6-1. I'm like, okay, here we go. But that's funny. So I like how you talk about that you had a different game style that drove people crazy
Mm-hmm.
because you had variety. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something I had to learn really in college because I wasn't going to win. You know, I like to come to the net, but had a flat ball and just learning more heavy ball. And now I'm like, oh man, we got to teach slice so much, so much sooner because it helps everything. The volley,
Mm-hmm.
you know, playing defense, playing offense with the slice. Um, how do you feel like you teach that early and have buy-in to that? Are you teaching that even if someone doesn't have a great top spin shot ground stroke yet? Are you willing to teach them a slice and a volley, or do you take one stroke at a time?
Um, you know, I like to start with the basics first, obviously, forehand, backhand, and serve, and just kind of get that in there first. Um, but I feel like you know how you tell somebody, okay, you know, you use a continental grip for everything except your forehand. So you go,
Yes.
you need to sometimes have continental grip lessons to where you're not allowed to hit a forehand. Everything's about volley, slicing, you know, two-handed backhand, but obviously continental with the right
Yes.
whatever serving. I want these kids. How many kids have you had that come in with a forehand grip and they hit everything with a forehand grip? They give you the pancake serve followed by the weird backhand with never change the grips, and it's all forehand. I mean, and you're like, oh, these kids have no clue how to use a continental grip. So I think that's number one. I got to be able to make them understand that. And then I like when I was little, you know, old school tennis is so different, you know, back then. And I remember I tell the kids a lot of stories that every time the courts were wet, we play mini tennis and we slice to each other. We play mini tennis slicing. You're not allowed to hit a topspin ball. So it was all about feel. So I started coaching kids like that and have fun with them too. Hey, let's play some mini tennis and I'll take you out. I'm going to show you how to cut the ball and carve it around, but you got to keep it in the box. So you're having fun playing some silly game. At the same time, you're developing your skills, you know, and the kids already trust you and bought into your coaching style and whatever, and they're willing to do it. And they're, okay, come with me and just dink the ball at the net. Let's do a little dinky volley, whatever. And the kids just having fun, you know. So when they're little, you can throw that in there from time to time, and then see how it goes. You kind of experiment with it, you know. And then some kids buy into it. Some kids, you know, they don't even honestly, they don't even have the time. They just
Yeah, they're like, oh
disappear.
yeah, I'm doing continental grip, and they have like full Western.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so I try to implement it there little by little, but I really start with the basics, like most people, with the serve and the forehand and the backhand. We have talks, we have lessons about, listen, at some point we have to learn to start moving forward. We have to learn to start having different strokes, like slicing or volleys. You know, I bring it up. But when you're teaching little kids, a lot of the lessons, sometimes you just don't have time to move on to those things sometimes, because they're only once or twice a week, and you go, how much time do I really have, you know, to do this? If a kid is coming 4 or 5 times a week for some reason, then you can start adding that once per week, little by little. Let's add some net gain, let's add some slices. But most little kids don't do that. You know, a lot of my programs, our program, a lot of the kids just come 2-3 times a week. That's all they really want. And at a young age, what are you trying to do? You want them to love the game, have fun, and learn it, and then you start seeing what comes out of there. A small percentage is going to want to be a little more into it, and the rest just want to have fun. They just want to stay with that. You know, they don't want to compete. They're not into that stuff. So you just take it as it goes, and that's one of the things that I learned as I kept coaching year by year. Is it's kind of like a match. You have to learn to adjust and adapt all the time. You know, if you want to be successful, just like in a match, you want to win that match, you want to have a good outcome, you have to learn to adapt and adjust. So I see that as a coach year after year. It's like, all right, let's see what this guy is going to come up with, you know, and from all different angles, you know. So,
absolutely.
But it's all fun because it is fun. It is what I like to, it is what I love to do. I know a lot of coaches that only focus on better players, you know, because they were good players in themselves. But I'm happy coaching a little 8-year-old, 9-year-old. I'm happy coaching a high school player. I'm happy coaching anybody. To me, that has never mattered, you know. So stay like that.
And I think you can, for me at least. Oh,
sorry,
okay?
The phone fell.
I thought you fell. Just kidding.
No, I'm not that old. I'm not that old yet. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm not gonna fall.
No, but I think one thing that I've learned too, because it is true, it's, you know, if you play at a high level professionally or collegiately, you're always like, oh, I want to coach the best player. And there is so much you can learn from coaching a 5, 6-year-old, 9-year-old, and an adult. And just really learning how everyone thinks and learns allows you to be a better communicator. So you talk about some of these kids come about 2 to 3 days a week. What would you say, and I think this is something you've had to adapt to as well, is the culture is different now. Everyone's on their phones. Our attention span is very small. Yeah. Everyone, I think everything, really, I try to turn everything into a competition or a game because that's what people are attracted to. But say you have a player right now, 14 years old, high schooler, wants to play Division I high-level tennis. And, you know, they could be homeschooled or not. But what do you think for them, like an ideal training would look like in a sense of how often they should play tournaments or what they're doing in practice, match play, privates, etc.?
I think everybody's a little different. I think if you're super, super gifted, talented player that maybe you come from different sports, you're just an amazing athlete and you just make it look easy. and you only like to compete, you're just one of those great competitors, I don't think you got to spend that much time on the practice court because you know how to kind of like change gears very quickly. You have that incredible sports mindset that can just step up, and a player that's good in different sports, you know, they can just whatever they want. And then you got players that need the time to work in their game. They're not as naturally gifted. They need to spend more time working on specific areas of their game so they can reach a high level, you know, the college level or something. So I've had a lot of both, you know, and I I have always been a big believer in quality over quantity. I'm a big believer in like, you know, high intensity if possible, as much as possible, but not too long. So if I will be doing like even our program for the longest time, when I finally was able to do early release because I allow people to get out of school early because that took a
Yes.
while. I
Yes.
mean, my first batch of players that was national level, none of them were homeschool, none of one of them. They couldn't do early release. I mean, to have a kid top 10 in the nation that literally went to regular school and had little time for tennis was pretty incredible. Now that
Yeah.
looking back then I thought it was okay, but looking
Because
back, I'm like,
everyone
wow,
was doing it.
there's just, you know, it just wasn't there. So when I was able to go early release, when finally, like, you know, Cobb County started finally allowing kids to do that, um, I was able to like do like a 3 hour practice, but at the same time, um, we only do it Monday to Thursday. That's it, Monday to Thursday, and then Fridays. A lot of kids go to tournaments, blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. If you want a private lesson because you're not in a tournament, or then we meet on the weekend or Friday. But I think 3 hours is more than enough because when I work these kids really hard, after 2 hours, you can see them already kind of fading away a little bit. And I have to go, come on, guys, you can't last 3 hours. Are you joking me? And then when it's time to get even more competitive, when you really start saying, okay, now we're not just playing points here. Now we're gonna really like compete even more. You know, some of them are like passing out, and I'm like, what's going on? You know, are you out of shape? So I wouldn't go past 3 hours. You know, I wouldn't go anymore. I just wouldn't. And me as a coach, that also work for me. You know, I think I'm happy with that. That's enough. And then the kids that come after school, depend on the age group and the levels. I think we may go from 1.5 hours in a lesson to like 2 hours or 2.5. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and a lot of some of these kids, they could be 13, 14, but they're not sure what they want to do. They're not really sure. They don't know if they
Mm-hmm.
want to go the route of I want to train more and harder because I want to play college tennis. And I also think that some of these kids, a lot of them don't have a vision, don't have goals, so they don't really know what to do. So you try to talk to them about, do you have vision or something that you want to shoot for? No, I don't, not really. I don't know. I don't know. Do you have any goals? Not really, not really. I said, well, let me know when you're ready to talk about that. I'm not gonna push you to have goals. I mean, you got to figure this out, you know. But and then the other ones that are more serious, obviously, have a different view. Like you say, they want to play college tennis and stuff. So I think a solid 3 hours is enough. When I hear of places going 5, 6 hours, I'm like, I laugh because I'm like, there's no way your attention span is gonna go that long.
Mm-mm.
Your body's still wimpy. You're not gonna last that long. There's a good chance you may get injured,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a good chance you may get a little bit burned out, sick of it, I guess, from doing too much. So I try to stay away from that.
Yeah. And
Try
I
to stay
think
away from
if you are doing 5 or 6 hours, there needs to be time for like, hey, we're watching matches and charting them, or we're doing some mental stuff, or we're doing yoga. Because I know, at least for me, I mean, when I was training in high school and I was in public school full time, I maybe did 2.5 hours a day. And I think I would have gotten burnt out if I would have gone.
one of my boys.
Lasky Bros.
Oh yeah.
Advice
What's that?
advice for juniors who want to play college tennis.
Oh man, these kids are young. I
They
say
already know their goals.
I that's great. That's great. I say for now, just really emphasize having fun, enjoying the game. I want them to really understand the game better, be a more of a student of the game, so they can understand why this and why that, how to problem solve a little better. Start with those things now. Don't worry too much about outcome and results at all. Just enjoy what you're doing, learn as much as possible. And when you start getting into tournaments, just try to focus more on things that you can control instead of some of these other things. I feel like a lot of kids, when they're young, they get so caught up in it, and they see other kids that are doing good or whatever, even though they don't know what those kids are like, really. And they get caught up in that whole scene. And I feel like it's more important that they focus on themselves and only themselves and things they can control, and learn the game as much as possible, which the reason why I say that is because that's how I've always coached. And the players that I have way back, it all started like that. I mean, it was all about, are you enjoying what you're doing? Are you having fun? Are you enjoying the competition? I'm going to teach you something today. And they loved it, and they wanted to play. They wanted to learn. And then we played a tournament, and, they won, they lost, whatever. But they came out always learning. And I think that's the key, that for my two little rookies that asked the question, I say keep learning, your time will come. But, always come to practice ready to learn, always come to practice ready to compete. Just when I mean by competing, I'm not saying about keeping track of the points. I'm saying just ready to play every ball and ready to fight. Who cares about the score? I want to see that you're doing all the basic stuff correctly. Because since you're so little, you can't cover the whole court. Let's make sure that you focus on the basic stuff first. Let's get 5 in a row, 10 in a row. Let's get the footwork going. Let's see how your focus is. Let's see how your intensity is, your concentration. Because these little kids, you know how that goes. They go on vacation. They go to a different planet. Go, okay, can you stay on planet Earth now, please? You're on Mars now. Can you get back to Earth? And I'm like, they just go on vacation. And then they get frustrated at silly things. And when they get frustrated at silly things, they lose track of the whole drill. They lose track of everything. They lose their focus like that. So I say to them, keep doing what you're doing. We're doing just fine, okay? And we're going to have a decent plan as we go along, And the key is just keep loving the game, keep enjoying it. And don't worry about anybody else. Don't compare to other people. Don't worry about any nonsense, okay? I had a few players that were phenomenal in the 12, 14, 16, 8, like all the way through, they were phenomenal. But the vast majority of my best were nobodies in the 12s, almost nobody in the 14, decently good in the 16s, and number 1 in the South in the 18s. So it took them a while to develop, to say the least, And these kids were not that good, but they have good characteristics that I like, that I knew that if they kept loving the game and they kept trying to improve, I knew they were going to be great. I got some good stories from players that it's almost hilarious. And I tell the story. I have this player that's on the Pro Tour right now, playing doubles.
You're talking about Hunter?
Hunter Reese, Hunter. And,
well, I was going to bring him up
yeah,
too.
Hunter Reese. And he came up to me and he says, Coach, I want to play for Georgia. And this guy couldn't hit 2 balls over the net. He's 13 years old, couldn't hit a ball over the net. And when I got to know him and I got to know the parents, and mom said, oh, he was a catcher in baseball. And I'm like, catchers, you got to be smart to be a catcher. You got to control the whole field. And this kid had incredible, you got to catch pitches. So imagine the hand-eye coordination. So this kid had like cat eyes, man. He was so quick to the ball, and then he was incredible. His instincts were incredible, just from baseball, just incredible instincts. Couldn't hit the balls over the net. And then I'm thinking, like, this guy is so quick to the ball, and then he was so smart. But again, at 13, couldn't hit 2 balls. He tells me he wants to play for Georgia, and I just go like, I remember looking at him going, you better start practicing, really. I mean, you're a little behind, you know. And by the time he was 16, he was one in the South
Yeah.
in 3 years.
Well, I remember
Crazy.
playing because we're the same age, and for the people who don't know, he played at Tennessee, and
Hmm.
they won NCAA's in
Hmm.
doubles, and he's now playing professionally too. And I think about it, we were at 16 zonals, and he was on another team, but that's kind of when he really started taking a jump. And he was just, I was like, who is this kid? And he came out of nowhere, and then he just started doing really well.
Yeah.
And you think about it, it's the kids sometimes get so wrapped up on who's number one in the 10s and the 12s.
Yeah.
And by that time, those players might be burnt out by the time they're 16,
Yeah.
17. So I
Yeah.
think that's a great advice for any level of kid, any age, is focus on what you can do to learn the game and get better and
Yeah.
enjoy it.
And nobody remembers how good you were in the 10s and 12s. I mean, let's be real. You know, who cares? You know, if you beat a junior that eventually was in the ATP tour, but you beat him where he was 12, what does that really mean? Yeah, I beat
Hey,
that guy when I was 12.
I still say I have a winning record over Taylor Townsend, even though
There
she
you go.
killed me at
What was she,
18
like three?
Southern.
She was three playing 12s. Yeah, you can always say things like that and have fun with it. But
Yeah,
the reality is that they were 8 years younger than you. You know,
exactly. Hey, she's
and
like 4 years
they
younger. It's
scare you.
okay.
They scare you. You barely won. You know, you barely won.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, I got about two more questions.
Hmm.
And this is a maybe a self-development question for you. But what do you think is your greatest strength as a coach? And then what is currently the biggest way that you're trying to improve or the biggest challenge for you right now?
I think my greatest strength, and I think I had that this for a while, and you keep getting better at it. But I think my greatest strength was able to relate to players and communicate and learn a lot about themselves and their game, and try to and have the ability to, like, I guess, to maximize what they have. I think I've been good about that. Improve whether it's the mental, the emotional, the tactical, whatever needs to be improved. I think I've been pretty good about getting better at that year after year. Like I said at the beginning, was more because of the variety in my game and things like that. I think I was good at that, but I think I had a lot of other things to learn. And then after 24 years with the program, I think I've gotten better at that stuff to where I can identify things a lot quicker and better, and that kind of stuff. And there's just so much I did not know that as you know, as you're gonna know as you get older, you're gonna go, wow, just when you thought you knew a lot, you
Oh my
realize
gosh.
you know not much.
I was talking to a friend yesterday and I was like, the things I know now, having been in coaching only 4 years, I would have not done them my first year. But at least my students knew I really cared about them.
Oh, that's
But
huge.
it's just
That is
funny.
that. I mean, that is even though my greatest quality is what I told you a second ago. I think I grind it out with them too. I care a lot about them. We grind it out together, because I used to play back then so much. I felt like I can bring that competitiveness, and I felt their losses and their wins. It's like, oh man, that hurt me, man. I'm not even on the court. That hurt
I
me,
know.
and I wanted them to do so well. And then go out there and they laid an egg, and I'm like, okay, we need to get better. We need to keep doing. We need to keep working hard. We have a lot to work on, but they're kids, and a lot of times adults want their kids to, like, think like adults and be strong like an adult. I said, dude, your kid is a little weakly. He's not very strong. He's not mature. He thinks like a 10-year-old still. You got to be patient. And that's a battle. That's a battle. I think you learn those things as you get older as a coach, that you have to deal with those little things on the outside that are a little tough from time to time. But my focus stays on the kid. And if you don't want me to coach your kid, then just fine. Just hasta la vista, no big deal. That's the way I see it. But I'm there for your kid. I'm there for the student. I'm there to make him better. Um, and the parents that allow me to do that, the ones that say, here he is, he's all yours, you know, those are the ones that you end up doing the most with. The ones
Absolutely.
that you have like free reign and you just go out there and say, hey, man, let's go. You know, you put under your wing. There's no outside noise. Nothing's bothering you. Nobody's bothering you. And you develop this great relationship. In many ways, those are the kids that really start learning how to problem solve better. They learn to become a little more confident. You know, that they see you as a role model and they trust you and they trust everything you say. And they go out there. I remember parents saying, oh, my kid got in the car and he told me, I remember Coach Stephen telling me this while they're playing the match. So my brain, at least some of my brain was in their brain. And when some of my brain is in their brain, that's good. That's
Mm-hmm.
good because I mean they're starting to figure some things out. You know, instead of being on planet Jupiter, they were on planet Stefan, and that's where you want to be. You know,
That's awesome. So
don't be my student. That's where you want to be.
oh my, I'm going to start using that. I like that. I like how you talk about the parents, you know, giving you the reins to coaching the kid because I think, I mean, you're a parent. My dad was my main coach growing up. And, you know, one of the funniest things when I got into junior tennis, they're like, oh, you have to deal with crazy parents. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, they care a lot about their kid and they want their kid to
Mm-hmm.
do well. So I think it's always the perspective you look at that as. Um, because if their heart's in the right place, yeah, they might come off a little crazy, but you just got to listen. What would you say, you know, just some advice? You are a parent, but some advice to tennis parents or to kids on how they can communicate well with their parents um,
To kids,
with this.
between kids and parents.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to the parents, I think the key is just to you know to support them and be emotionally like positive with them as much as possible. And you know the one thing that I think is important is you know when your kid is having a practice, I think you know it's important to you know as your own kid. I guess I mean I'm gonna act like a parent. I'll be like, hey, you know what? Did you have fun? You know, and start with something like that. Did you have a good time tonight? Did you? And I usually ask him something as simple as like, what did you think you did pretty good today? You know, and he's got to come up with something, and I'm like, well, what did you think you could have done better? You know, so I just nothing about winning and losing, nothing about like you better than that other guy or whatever. You know, who cares? Like it's about you and are you enjoying what you're doing and things like that. So I think that's a good advice for parents for their kids. You know, kids don't listen to their parents a lot of times, so that's a tough one. But I think if you can just keep it simple and stay positive and be supportive, um, I think the kids will be okay. I think they'll figure it out. They'll figure out some good things there. A kid that goes into a court and feels some kind of pressure from the parents, I mean, I think there's trouble there for sure because I think the parents may be a little too much outcome oriented, and that just doesn't work at all. I
Yeah,
mean,
because
the
they
fact
can't,
that my
you
parents don't
can't
even
control it.
my parents didn't even want me to play tennis. My parents just like stay at home and wash the car and mow the lawn, and I'm like, oh, and all I wanted to do was be outside. And I mean, back in the day, I'm sure a lot of people my age may say the same thing, but I was a street player. I mean, I was a guy that came home from school and I knock on my neighbor's door and we go play basketball. And I had nobody to play with at the tennis courts. I didn't have a real coach, but I was outside playing. And of course, there's no cell phones or any of that stuff. But I also was the kind of kid that I was a student of whatever game I got into. I had all the stats in basketball, my favorite team, my favorite player, baseball, my favorite. You know, I was so into that stuff because I just love sports. I just happened to run into tennis because I started working at the tennis center, helping out, and then I was hitting balls with the other kids that were doing the same thing as me. And some of them were a little older than me, so they knew tennis a little more than me. So I learned a lot. I actually learned a lot from my own friends that were like 3 years older
Wow.
and I was at their little brother that had more talent than them. So they were like, "Oh, look, this is my little brother. He's got a lot of talent, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we go and play, have fun. And the hard part for me came when they left out of high school because they were older than me. So when I turned about 14 or 15, I was developing very quickly. I mean, doing really well. And all of a sudden, nobody to play with. And my game just got stale. Lucky for me, I was still a lefty serve volleyer, so I got away with murder. Let's just put it that way, just because I had that style. Short points, didn't have to really grind. I was able to manage, you know. So I stayed decently out. You know, I was like number 2 in Puerto Rico most of the time. Never number 1, always number 2, whatever. Okay. Unfortunately,
I feel your pain on that. I get that.
But I made up for that later. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was never the best one in juniors, but I was a fighter. I love street ball. I like to mess around with my friends at school, playing little silly games. We play handball, we play ping pong, we play basketball. That's all I did. If you ask me how much tennis did I play after 14 years old, if I played once a week was a lot. Just, wow. I mean, that was crazy. You know, it's crazy. But that was the environment that I live in. So when I turned 17, luckily I was a year ahead in school. So I turned 17 and I was graduating early. And I knew nothing about college tennis. Nothing. I was clueless. I didn't know what to do with my life. And one of the coaches at the pro shop, he goes, "Why don't you go play college tennis? I'm already a senior. I'm about to graduate." And I'm like, that sounds fun. Sounds like something I want to do. And he helped me out. We took a trip to there was a guy from Puerto Rico that was really good. He was NCAA really. He played number 2 for Clemson.
Wow.
And Clemson was number 2 in the nation. So I played him and I almost beat him. And I was only 15. So he was like, "Oh, this young kid, you know, can be something." But then I spent 2 years doing nothing. From 15 to 17, my game got stale. But I guess this guy took me to play some tournaments actually in Georgia, ironically. And I came to Georgia and I played like the number 1 guy in the state, and I beat him up like 3-3. And the Clemson coach came to watch me. And he goes, "Man, you got a great game style, you know, lefty, serve and volley, blah, blah, blah." And I had a great team, so I was really a nobody to them. But he liked my style. He liked my game style. And he goes, "We would love for you to come to Clemson." And I'm like, my parents have no money. I just can't. I cannot afford anything like that. And even though this other guy put a good word for me that I have potential, I just couldn't do it. So, and then Auburn was kind of the same thing. Auburn was like top 20 maybe, main campus. And it was the same thing. I started looking so late. There was no scholarships.
Yeah.
And then lucky for me, the Auburn coach called the Auburn Montgomery coach. And there was a spot open and full ride. And I took it immediately. I mean, like, I didn't look I'm taking my full ride and I'm getting the heck out of Puerto Rico. I'm out of here.
And you landed in Montgomery, Alabama.
Landed in Alabama. You know what the best thing of Alabama is? You want to know?
What's the best thing?
Oh my God.
Oh, you paused for a second.
Sweet tea. We don't have sweet tea in Puerto Rico. So I went to Alabama and I'm like, "Man, this sweet tea is amazing."
I hope you didn't get any cavities. It is so good.
Maybe I don't know what. I was sweet tea all day. And I was, and then fried okra. I love that fried okra. So good. So those were my best moments in Alabama when it comes to food. But it was definitely a culture change, you know. Lucky for me, the team was phenomenal. We had a bunch of foreigners. We had about 4 South Africans, 2 guys from Panama, and myself. And we went from, as a freshman, I guess they recruited like a lot of good players the same year as me. We have 4 freshmen on my freshman year. And the team went from like 10 to number 1 in the nation in NAIA.
Wow.
Obviously, it was NAIA.
Yeah.
So the team was phenomenal. We had a guy that was 11 in the world in juniors. So we had a hell of a team. You know, people that were clueless about what to do, they just went to college. And all of a sudden you have these good players on the team. It was like a lucky thing. And the team was great. I mean, we could play Division I schools, top 20 people, like no problem. So
Wow.
that was fun, and that's when I got much better because my first year I was still kind of wimpy, 17. I wasn't really like built up or anything, so I got spanked around a little. I was playing like number 5 on the team, but the team was good, so it's no big deal, and we're winning, and that was fun. And then after that, I kept developing as an athlete, not just a smarter player, but I got bigger, stronger, I got taller, and I started to see that, hey, you know what, my serve volley is getting better, my serve's getting bigger, my athleticism's getting better. A lot of these other guys were really good, and they were great guys. I mean, we all supported each other so much. There was no animosity among players, you know. And then I worked my way up to number 1 eventually. So my senior year, I finally played number 1. So that was great. So it was a great college experience. But the best part was my friends on the team. They were amazing. You know, we're still great friends, and we had so much fun. So in Alabama.
In Montgomery, Alabama.
We made the most out of
Can be
Alabama.
done. It can be done. Oh
It
my
can be
gosh.
done. Yes, we did it.
Okay. So last question. What advice would you give to a younger coach? Maybe they're just starting out, that you maybe would have given yourself when you started into how can I develop players to
Uh,
be the best they can be as
I
fast
think
as possible?
when it comes to like how to develop a player or how or what to think of a coach like as a young coach.
Um, I think in a sense of, yeah, how do I, develop quickly as a coach to help
Oh, as a coach,
my
as a coach,
player?
not a
Yeah,
player.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Because we already talked about the player thing.
Yeah.
I think be ready to grind. That's for sure. Because if you want to get into junior development, and you know, there's gonna be more expectations about developing a player from the bottom up, and there's so many different stages. So I would say that you're not just out there coaching recreational players and just doing little fun games, you know, which I don't like to do that at all. But I think that I think a lot of I will start by educating yourself as much as possible, kind of like what you're doing. I mean, when I was a young coach, I immediately got my USPTA certification. When I started doing junior development stuff, I immediately did my high performance USDA thing.
USTA.
I did some USDA, I did some workshops, I did all that stuff. That's when I was saying that I didn't know a lot about coaching yet until I started doing those things. And I thought I knew. Well, I knew how to play tennis, but that's about it. And I knew how to get along with people and things like that. But I say educating yourself as much as possible is a big deal. I say you have to put the player first. I think you have to make sure that you don't get caught up in the business side of it and focus more on the development side of it. You know, obviously, a lot of coaches get too caught up in like making a lot of money. When I first seen good players and I was spending ridiculous amount of money to be developed, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to spend that much money to be a good player, you know. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of it was coaches that were just literally just taking them to the cleaners, to say the least. But they were just doing too much of that, and I was more about helping the player as much as possible. And there's a business side to it, but you got to still focus on the player first. I think that's important. Um, I think you gotta be there for them. You know, I
Yeah.
think whether it's conversations or you know, like keeping in touch, communication with your players and things like that. I think that's very important. Um, I think you gotta stay humble because I think when I started developing really good players and they were doing really well nationally, everybody said, "Oh, Stephen, your players they're amazing, they're really good, blah 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 blah." And what do you do? What do you do to help them? And what is blah blah blah? And just going like, I don't know. They're the ones that won the match, not me. You know, I'm
Yeah.
just here. I'm just here
Stephen,
like
they're gonna
for
they're
them.
gonna kick us out in 10
They
seconds.
are. Oh
They are.
no! Last but not
Think,
least, last but not
yeah.
least,